Welcome to my second review. Today I'll be giving my thoughts on the Atlantis resort and really the Nassau area as a whole, and if I think it's worth your time and money. Also share some day trip recommendations and some excursions for you to check out. So Atlantis is only about 70 miles from Miami, and it's on Paradise Island, which connects to Nassau, and it's not even technically a part of the Caribbean. And if you grew up like me, you saw commercials for it all the time, and it was my dream destination when I was little. Resorts and all-inclusive vacations aren't really my thing anymore, but when the opportunity presents themselves, I like to take advantage, and for this trip, had we not gotten a discount, it probably wouldn't even crossed our mind. But the hotel itself really is as beautiful as in the pictures that you always see. It really dominates the skyline and takes up a large chunk of the island, and it can take you at least an hour just to walk around. We had a really nice room at the Cove with a great view of the water and the island, but my two standout things about the resort were the aquariums and the water park. They have indoor and outdoor aquariums scattered around the resort, and one full-size aquarium called the Dig. And they're really like the most unique decorations, if you can call it that, to like any resort I've ever seen. The tanks are really big with tons of fish and sharks with some cool features that are open 24 hours, and they take about an hour to see all at once, but you also pass them by whenever you're just walking around the resort as well. They've got some cool pools and multiple private beaches, but they're nothing really you wouldn't find at any other resort. The water park is the other major highlight, and I'm the youngest in my family at 25, and we all had a ton of fun at the park. I was expecting long lines because they have about 8 rides. They allow cruise ship passengers and anybody else that wants to pay the $200 for a day pass to get in. But I don't know if it was because of the time of the year and it was a little bit chillier or what, but we never waited in a line more than 5 minutes. The rides were super unique, like this hidden cenote at the end of this slide, and they all had amazing water and resort views at all of them. In this same complex, they had 4 water coasters as well that ran into river rapids, which can also be like lazy rivers with waves. The ride through the shark tank was really just as cool as I thought it would be growing up, and there's also a slow tube ride that goes through the shark tank where you really just feel like you're in it with them. And it's also really cool just watching from the outside people going through the tank. And on that Mayan temple complex, there's 3 slides as well as a kid one off to the side. Some things to avoid: the on-site excursions and the food. Keep in mind everything in the Bahamas is expensive, but at the resort it's just dumb. We thought about the snorkel with the ruins of Atlantis. It sounded cool until I looked into it, and it was 30 minutes of instruction and 30 minutes of snorkeling right next to the casino in one of the aquarium tanks. So sure, you're guaranteed to see some cool fish and a bunch of fake artifacts, but for $200 you could definitely find better options, and I'll share those later in the video. I also paid $75 to paddleboard with dolphins, which was obviously not my best investment, but I mean it was still kind of cool, I guess. And then last, the food was just outrageously priced. Even with some of the credit they gave us, it was incredibly average, and with few places that were even unique or authentic, we left every meal at the resort disappointed. And the average main was about $30 to $40, with drinks ranging from anywhere from $7 to $25. I even sent some Snapchats as a joke to people because there was a breakfast buffet place for $50 a plate, and at the same place that night it was $110. So I would recommend, trying to get some groceries that are within walking distance, or eating in Nassau at places like Arwak Key. So Atlantis can be a great time, but it's far from an all-inclusive resort. The average room runs about $400 a night, and we stayed at the Cove, which is a little newer and has its own private beaches and pools and everything, so it's a little more expensive. For reference, I booked an all-inclusive resort in the Dominican for next month for $180 a night, so it's a pretty big difference. I would still recommend staying in Atlantis for one night if you could, but they require a 2-night stay. So if you're splurging, I mean, you saw my room. It's pretty nice, but it's nothing crazy. It's worth the 2-night stay for the variety of beaches, pools, the casino, water park, and everything. But if you're on a budget, definitely just get the day pass and just go for the day. $200 is pretty steep, but it's pretty worth it for everything you get for the day, and it's something to check off my childhood bucket list. For the other days, there are plenty of great Airbnbs and small resorts in the area, depending on what you're looking for. So with all that being said, I still think it's worth visiting. It's a great place, but I'd give it a combined score of a 7 out of 10. What do you think? Now, I'm definitely not one to spend all my time at the resort like I did when I was little, so I think the city of Nassau deserves at least a half-day tour in the sites. Our favorites were Queen's Staircase, Fort Charlotte, John Watling's Distillery, but I'll have them all labeled here in the video so you can get some ideas. Fun fact, they drive on the left side of the road, but some of the cars drive on the right side while some of the others drive on the left, so that was kind of weird to watch. Another great half-day trip is snorkeling in Clifton Heritage National Park. This is on the far west coast of the island, and it's about a 30-minute drive from downtown Nassau. You can drive there on your own, or for $100 you can get pickup from your hotel, lunch, an hour of snorkeling, and time on a private beach and bar. And this is not your regular snorkel trip, so you will be disappointed like my sisters were if you want to see beautiful reefs. This tour is for an underwater sculpture garden. The biggest one is pretty sweet, and there are about 2 other standout sculptures, a sunken plane and an artificial reef, which, although not the prettiest, it does its job and brought in a lot of fish. You will have a small group as well, and all the beaches nearby are completely empty with crystal clear water. And it's also on the site of a former slave plantation, so you could easily spend a half day here. And our last day was probably our best day and the excursion I would recommend the most. The Powerboat Adventures Tour was a full 8-hour day that included lunch and all the activities. It said there was snorkeling when we signed up, but when we asked while we were on the boat when we were going to do that, they said that they haven't done it since COVID, so that would have been nice to know beforehand. But when I was looking into day trips, all the hype in the Bahamas was about swimming with the pigs, and pretty much every longer boat tour includes it. I figured we'd see what the hype was about and try this tour since it was pretty competitively priced. It included lunch, an open bar, and it was on a private island with a shark show, feeding iguanas, stingrays, and the swimming with the pigs. So even though this was cheaper than most of the tours I ran across, it was still the most I've ever spent on a single tour at $257. But if you compare that to the $200, 30 minutes of snorkeling next to the Atlantis casino, I would say it's a pretty good deal. Also, the pigs were so much cuter and fun than I was expecting. It ended up being the highlight of the day. And the crew was extremely organized and friendly, and it was a great way to end our trip. And another thing to keep in mind, there is a 10% tax and 15% gratuity on just about everything you buy, and it will make a huge difference at the end when you get your bill. Hey, you're slacking, buddy. So as I wrap up everything here, I would recommend visiting the Bahamas, but just be aware of the main issue of visiting, particularly with Atlantis, is the cost. Nassau and the area as a whole, I would give an 8 out of 10. It can be a little touristy in parts and run down in others, but it also has some cool history. Everybody speaks English, which is really nice. There's great weather year-round and tons of unique and a wide range of things to do, with amazing beaches and water all available within a day trip. So if you stuck with me to the end of this video, I hope this was helpful if you're thinking about going to the Bahamas or Atlantis. If you've already been, let me know if you agree with my ratings. I do think that it's worth experiencing, but it is much less bang for your buck compared to other popular islands like in the Caribbean, like Jamaica or the Dominican.